Tammy Sue Bakker,
Wow, love
one
that.
of my great all-time favorites. Please welcome General Boykin back to our show
Yes.
today. Great to have
Thank
you.
you, Jim.
We love you so much,
Thank you.
General. He is so
Thank
amazing.
you.
So amazing.
How do you feel the president's done in this first year? Let's just have a little overview today.
You know, I think that the president has done more in his first year than our last president did in 8 years, and in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
He has done more positive things. So I feel very good about where our president is in terms of his accomplishments, in terms of fulfilling his campaign pledges. So as I have said before publicly, I'm not a cheerleader for him, but I'm giving him credit where credit is due.
Amen.
And he has done very well in his first year.
You said you thought the round table that I had a privilege of being there too.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best you've ever been.
It was the best that I've ever been, and you were part of the reason for that. And when you know, it was interesting. You sat there as if you were asleep or something. You sat there in that round table with some very articulate,
Yes.
very erudite people talking about things. And then all of a sudden, when you stood to speak, you spoke, I just found out, for 14 and a half minutes, impromptu, no notes or anything, and I think you brought everybody to a point that they were fighting their own emotions, and in some cases, and myself being one of those, that we were actually very emotional about what you were saying as you went through. And again, remember, it was right on the end of right at the time that Billy Graham had just died a couple of days before, and you not only spoke with eloquence about what he meant to you and how he came into your life, but you also gave us sort of a vision for what does it mean that Billy has died, and what does it portend for the future of America. So it was a wonderful experience there, and it was the best round table that I've been to.
Yes. Oh, wow. Wow. What an honor to be
You
there.
had a lot to say. And I just really appreciate what you gave to us all. But one of the main subjects, I think, was fathering. Was it father?
Yeah.
What would you say? Fathering, being fathers.
Fatherhood, yeah.
It really, boy, it was strong.
It was.
Yes, I had just come from a men's conference in Chicago, and in that men's conference, there had been a lot of young boys that somebody had paid for, that right out of the hood in East Chicago or South Chicago, and a lot of these kids didn't have fathers and so forth. So one of the things that we did is near the end of this conference there, I had all of these young boys that were fatherless to come forward, and we had some man would come forward and give them a father's blessing and affirm them. Mm-hmm. And I personally did that to a young boy that the Lord had just identified to me, and I had such a burden for this young man. So as it turns out, he pulled me aside and wanted to talk to me, and he doesn't know who his father is. He sees his mother 4 times a year because she's in prison, and he lives with his grandmother, and he's caught between gangs in the hood, and he's contemplating suicide. And so I gave him the father's blessing, affirmed him as a man, and then found a mentor for him. Another one of the men that was attending the conference said, I'll mentor him, and because that's so important.
So important.
Mentoring is making disciples, if you will, but it's mentoring.
It is mentoring.
And a man, if he has the opportunity to mentor a boy and he rejects that opportunity, I think that he's rejecting God, literally, by doing that. But then what I explained at the conference was we ran into the roadblock that you talked about when you got up and spoke, and the roadblock is the grandmother.
That's right.
Because the grandmother rules in the hood, and
That's
you
right.
said that so eloquently, and that's what we're running into. We're working our way through it
Good.
to co-opt the grandmother, to let her know that this man is there to do good.
Yes.
This man is there because God has directed him to mentor this young boy. But so we're working through that now. But that's a typical story all over America.
That's right.
You know, all over America, in every major city.
That's right. You know, Ricky, I was just wondering, Ricky, did you have any? Ricky was able to sit behind us, and as an attendee, they call it at the round table. You have to be invited to sit at the round table, and Rick Joyner was so gracious enough to have you there, and you were by far the youngest person there, you know. And I mean, what did you think about that whole fatherhood issue?
You know, we spoke on that for probably about 45 minutes to an hour roughly, and you heard a lot of different perspectives of it, but the general brought it to a practical point where he said, you know, our generation, yeah, we need spiritual fathers, but the physical fathers have also become absent, more so in my generation than I think in any other generation, simply because they don't think that they're able to do it, and they don't want to have the responsibility of doing it. And I think having the urgency put back on the men of our generation is saying that you are allowed to be men. You don't have to be this wimped down feministic version of a man. You can be a man and you can raise a man. I think we need that back. Especially we need to start in the church.
That's good. That's exactly what the general said, something like that. That's right.
You were so anointed and burdened for that one boy. And everybody was praying.
Yes.
And these things can be solved with God.
Yes.
And with the power of God's love and all.
Well, you know, Jim, not to start talking about our story, because I'll throw this in, but, you know, all of our kids came from not knowing who their biological father was. They just, there was no fathers in the ghetto of Phoenix. And when I came into this family's life, and it's a matriarchal society is what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, the father, this is a proven fact, the father has the biggest influence over a person's life than anybody else, is the father. Now, they need the mothers, they need us to nurture them, they need us to, you know, do all that. But the father is the most influential person in a person's life. And of course, Satan would come in and kill, steal, and destroy fatherhood, and have fathers absent.
You know why I believe a mother will guide you, but a father will define you.
That's
You
good.
defined me as far as my mother guided me. But when I found you, when you came into my life, you defined my destiny. That's what a father means when it walks into your life. That's why I can't believe you guys talked about that, because every kid, I'm a product of the inner city, and I was being defined by the OGs, by the homeboys, by, you know, the people that were selling drugs. But when a spiritual father became a physical father, now there was a different definition of a destiny that God had already planned for young men and women in our neighborhoods. So the importance of what you guys spoke defined this young man's future at that very moment, knowing that physical fathers, Lance Walnut just wrote on one of the transcripts from your meeting, he said, I think we are giving the battles we didn't want to fight with our children.
Think about this.
Yeah.
If you are a black child born in America today, there's a 72% chance that your parents are not married.
Right.
And an equal chance that your father will not be in the home. And no matter what race you are, there's about a 50% chance that your parents won't be together by the time you graduate from high school. So men, the message to men is, especially, think about this, if you're a white man, you are automatically a racist.
Right.
Right.
That's
and you
right.
automatically have white privilege if you're a white man.
That's right.
So now you're starting to see, even among white men at a higher socioeconomic status, you're seeing white men that are so confused over what they are. And that is because of the message that they're getting from our society. Number one, Jim, you're a racist because you're white. Number two, you have white privilege, so you get by with things that nobody else does. And they're being bombarded with this message. Look, what we need to go back to is a biblical standard for man.
Yes.
What's a man? I'm going to give you I'm gonna give you my next book right now. I hadn't even written it yet, but I just talked to the publisher 2 days ago.
Good.
A man is a protector.
Yes.
Okay, you protect your family, and it's not only that you protect them from harm, from physical harm, but you protect your family from doing things that you may have done that were harmful.
Right.
You protect them from harm.
Yes.
You number 2, you're the provider.
Yes.
You provide for your family. You provide for not only their financial needs, but you provide them direction and guidance.
Yes.
You provide them identity. And see, that's what you're talking about. Being affirmed by a man gave you an identity.
Right.
Beyond the gangs that were pulling you in both directions.
That's right.
So you're the provider. Number 3, you're the pal. You see, you need a man in your life that you can be intimate with, not in a sexual context, but a man that you can share your most intimate fears and concerns and apprehensions and joys. But you need a battle buddy. The military calls it a battle buddy. In the Army, you got a battle buddy. And that battle buddy's never going to leave you. He's going to be right there with you. And I've seen men die because they wouldn't leave their battle buddy. And I've put 2 of them in for the Medal of Honor, and they got it. You got to be a pal. The third thing is you're the professor. You know what? Billy Graham said you need to walk around with a Bible under one arm and a newspaper under the other. And that's because we need to be aware of what's happening in our country. These people that say, I don't even watch the news anymore because it's so depressing. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. Go to alternate sources. You don't have to watch CNN and Fox.
Right.
But go to alternate sources. But you've got to know what's going on, because if you're the man of the family,
Yeah.
no, you may be the father or the grandfather or the great-grandfather, but you've got to be the source of information about what's happening in this world we live in, because an adolescent cannot figure it out. They can't figure out what's going on in the world today because it's become so bizarre.
Yeah.
And then finally, you're the priest.
Wow.
You're the priest of the family. And you're the spiritual head. Now, my wife makes all the decisions. I come home someday and I'm not sure I'm in the right house. Because the furniture's all gone, or it's all. I don't.
Little decisions we make.
I don't know whether I make any money or not. I don't ever see it. But and that's not. It's just because she does all of those things.
Right.
But I'm still the spiritual head.
That's right.
Of my house.
Amen.
And I set the direction when.
That's so good.
Amen. You know.
I can't wait for this book to come out.
Well, when Joshua led the Israelites out into the desert and said, now you choose ye this day which God you're going to serve. But he finished it by saying, but as for me and my house, that's the priest.
Yes.
That's the spiritual head. That's the priest. But one of the things that we don't do is we don't bless our children.
Right.
We don't go and lay our hands on our children and give them the kind of father's blessing. You know, the age-old rift between 2 brothers.
Yes.
Because of one stole the other one's father's blessing.
Yes.
You know, before Rebecca went off to marry Isaac, her brother called her up and laid his hands on her and blessed her, right? We don't do the father's blessing. Fathers don't bless their children the way they should. And this is where you affirm your son. You affirm your daughter. You show them as a spiritual head that you love them, you have great hopes in them, and that you pray God's blessings upon them,
Yes.
that they will be prosperous, just as the brother did, Laban. So that's my next book. But what am I saying? I'm saying a man has to be all of those things, not just a sperm donor, if
Right.
you will.
That's right.
Which is what so many men have become.
That's right.
And men have got to get beyond listening to this message that we're getting that says you're no different than a woman. And it's all about destroying manhood. You can't destroy society unless you destroy manhood.
Yeah.
You see, as long as the men have the courage, the men stand in the gap, the men are the warriors.
Yes.
A man comes out of the womb meant to be a warrior. And when a man is no longer a warrior, then he is absolutely, in my view, is absolutely shirking his responsibilities.
We want
Enough said.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And it's
the warrior
biblical.
soul. Powerful principles to make a stronger man of God. So if you want to get